The marketplace of Taran City was always loud, filled with the smell of food, the sound of traders, and the colors of alien banners that hung across the stone streets. Humans rarely visited this part of the colony, but today, one human man found himself walking through the crowd, carrying a basket of tools he had just repaired for a merchant. His name was Daniel, and though he looked like any simple human, fate was about to drag him into a world he never imagined. Daniel pushed his way through the crowd carefully, avoiding the tails, horns, and wings of different alien species. He had learned quickly that touching an alien's body without permission could cause trouble. But fate, it seemed, had another plan for him that day. At one corner of the market, a small group of alien warriors stood, their armor shining with silver light. Among them was a young alien girl, tall and proud, with pale skin that shimmered faintly under the sun. Her eyes were golden, and behind her swayed a long, scaled tail that moved like it had a mind of its own. She carried herself with confidence, as if she belonged to a noble clan. The crowd gave her space, whispering her name in fear and respect. Daniel was not paying attention. He was focused on adjusting the heavy basket in his arms. The marketplace was too crowded, and as he stepped aside to let a merchant's cart roll past, his hand slipped. Before he even realized what had happened, his fingers brushed against something soft, warm, and alive. It was her tail. Time froze. The alien girl turned instantly, her golden eyes flashing with shock and rage. The crowd gasped, and silence spread like fire through the marketplace. Every eye turned toward the human who had just done the unthinkable. Daniel's face went pale. He pulled his hand back at once, stammering, I didn't mean to. It was an accident. But the girl's gaze pierced him like a blade. She stepped closer, her tail curling protectively around her. Yet her hand shot out and gripped his wrist with surprising strength. You dare, she whispered, her voice low but filled with thunder. The people around them began to murmur. Tail touching. It happened. He cannot escape now. Poor fool, he has no idea. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. He tried to pull away, but her grip tightened like iron. I said it was an accident, he repeated, his voice desperate. But she didn't listen. Instead, she lifted his hand high so everyone could see. Then she said words that made the crowd roar in shock. Now you belong to me. The marketplace erupted. Some shouted in anger, others laughed, some even bowed their heads. The alien girl's eyes did not waver. Her expression was a strange mix of anger and something Daniel could not understand. Daniel shook his head. No, you don't understand. I didn't mean to. I don't belong to anyone, he said, his voice breaking. But the people only shook their heads, whispering, the bond has been made. He is bound to her now. There is no escape from the tail bond. Daniel had no idea what they were talking about. He only knew that the young alien's hand was burning against his wrist, and that her golden eyes refused to look away. She stepped closer, her voice steady. You touched my tail, human. Whether by mistake or by choice, the bond is sealed. Her tone carried the weight of law, of tradition, of something far greater than his understanding. Daniel's legs weakened. This couldn't be happening. He was just a simple worker, fixing tools, earning coins, and trying to survive in a colony where humans were always outsiders. And now, because of one slip, one accident, he was caught in a storm he did not understand. Guards appeared from the edge of the crowd, tall alien soldiers with sharp weapons. They marched toward him, their faces hard and cold. Daniel's breath caught. He thought they were here to arrest him, to drag him away for his mistake. But before they could touch him, the alien girl raised her hand. Do not touch him, she ordered, her voice firm and commanding. The guards froze, uncertain. The crowd gasped again. Daniel's eyes widened. She was protecting him. Why? He stared at her, trying to find answers in her golden gaze. But all he saw was fire, determination, and something else hidden beneath. Something dangerous, something binding. The young alien leaned closer, her lips almost at his ear. "You are mine now, human," she whispered. "And nothing in this world can change that." Daniel shivered. The marketplace buzzed with rumors. The crowd scattered, but eyes kept watching him from every corner. Daniel's heart raced, his life suddenly tangled in a tradition he never knew existed. He wanted to run, but her grip held him still. And deep inside, he felt a strange chill, mixed with curiosity. His life would never be the same. The accident had changed everything. The air in the marketplace still felt heavy after the accident. Daniel could feel hundreds of eyes following him as the alien girl held tightly to his wrist, refusing to let go. He wanted to believe this was some misunderstanding, that once she calmed down, she would release him. But the look in her golden eyes told him otherwise. The girl's name echoed through the whispers of the crowd. "Solara," someone whispered in awe. "She's from the Kari clan," another voice added. Daniel's heart sank. He had heard of the Kari before, warriors feared across the colony, protectors of ancient traditions. And now their young heiress was holding him like a prisoner. "Listen," Daniel said softly, trying to reason. "It was a mistake. I don't even know your customs. I didn't mean any disrespect." But Solara's grip only tightened. Her face came close, and she said firmly, "There are no mistakes, human, the bond is sealed." The crowd began to move, clearing a path as more armored warriors appeared. Daniel's breath quickened. Were they going to take him away? Was this how his life ended? Punished for a touch he never meant? But then something unexpected happened. The guards lowered their weapons, waiting for Solara's command. She looked at them coldly. "He is mine, and no one touches him." Daniel's eyes widened. She was defending him? But why? The people around them were restless, their whispers sharp. "He doesn't deserve the bond." "A human? It's shameful. The clan will never accept this." Daniel's chest tightened. He had never felt so out of place before. It wasn't just anger in their eyes. It was disgust, like he had polluted something sacred. He tried again to pull his hand free, but Solara's strength was like steel. "You don't understand," Daniel said, his voice cracking. "I don't belong here. I'm just trying to live my life." For a moment, Solara's golden eyes softened, almost as if she heard the truth in his words. But then her pride returned. "You touched my tail, Daniel of Earth," she said, now speaking loud enough for all to hear. "You are bound to me by blood and honor, and you will not walk away." Daniel froze. How did she know his name? He hadn't told her, yet her words struck like thunder. The crowd gasped, and Daniel felt the ground beneath him tilt. This was no longer an accident. It was turning into destiny. The guards formed a circle, and Solara pulled him forward. The crowd parted like waves before them. Daniel stumbled, nearly dropping his basket. "Where are you taking me?" he demanded, fear edging his voice. "To where you belong now," she replied without looking back. They marched through the city, the whispers following them. Some aliens laughed, some spat, others looked away as if ashamed. Daniel felt like a prisoner on display. He wanted to scream that it was unfair, that he never asked for this. But every time he looked at Solara, he saw something strange in her expression. She wasn't mocking him, nor treating him as a joke. She looked determined, as if this bond was more important than her own life. At last, they reached the massive gates of the Kari fortress. The walls loomed high, carved with strange symbols, glowing faintly under the red sun. Daniel's stomach twisted. He didn't belong here, not among warriors and clans bound by traditions he could never understand. Inside the gates, a silence fell. Dozens of warriors stopped their training to watch them. Their sharp eyes burned into Daniel's skin. One older warrior stepped forward, his scars running across his face. "Solara," he said firmly, "what is this?" "This," Solara replied, holding Daniel's wrist higher, "is my bond." A stunned silence followed. The warrior narrowed his eyes, his voice dripping with anger. "With a human? You shame your bloodline." Gasps filled the courtyard, but Solara stood tall. "I do not care for your judgment." He touched my tail. "The bond is sacred, it cannot be undone." Daniel's head spun. This couldn't be real. He wanted to scream that he never wanted this bond. But as he opened his mouth, Solara's eyes cut into his, warning him. If he denied it here, in front of her clan, they might kill him on the spot. That night, they placed him in a chamber, not a cell, but not freedom either. Guards stood at the doors, and Solara remained nearby, silent. Daniel sat on the stone bench, his hands trembling. "I didn't ask for this," he whispered to himself. From the corner, Solara finally spoke, her voice quieter now. "Neither did I." Daniel turned, surprised. She looked different in the firelight. Her pride dimmed, her golden eyes shadowed with something deeper. "This bond was not supposed to be with you," she admitted softly. "My people will never accept it. And yet, I cannot break it, no matter how much I want to." For the first time, Daniel saw the truth. She was as trapped as he was. The accident had bound them both, tying two lives together with chains neither of them wanted. Daniel leaned back against the cold wall, his heart heavy. This was not just unwanted, it was dangerous. The clan hated him, the bond tied him, and Solara herself seemed torn between duty and despair. He closed his eyes, realizing one chilling truth. There was no way back. His life as a free man was already gone. Daniel woke to the sound of strange horns echoing through the stone walls. The chamber he had been placed in was small but clean, its walls glowing faintly with lines of alien script. He rubbed his face, wishing it had all been a dream. But the heavy door, the guards outside, and the memory of Solara's golden eyes reminded him it was all real. He was trapped in a world he didn't understand. And no accident, no apology, could free him now. The door creaked open, and Solara entered, her tail moving gracefully behind her. She carried no weapons, but the guards stood straight as she passed. Her authority was clear. She wasn't just anyone in this clan. She was someone important. "Come," she said firmly, her eyes locking on him. Daniel hesitated. "Where?" "To learn," she answered simply. "If you are to walk among my people, you must know what the bond means." Reluctantly, Daniel followed her through the fortress halls. The walls were carved with images of battles, warriors, and creatures that looked part serpent, part dragon. Every alien they passed stopped and stared, their expressions sharp with hatred or disbelief. Daniel felt like a shadow among them, an intruder wearing chains only he could not see. At last, Solara led him into a vast chamber. The ceiling rose high above, glowing crystals casting soft blue light over the floor. In the center stood an ancient stone pillar, and on it was carved a spiral symbol, strange, beautiful, and alive with power. "This is the heart of the Kari," Solara explained, her voice low but steady. "Here lies the origin of the tail bond." Daniel frowned, trying to keep his voice calm. "I don't understand. Why does touching a tail matter so much?" Solara's gaze hardened. "It is not just a touch, human. The tail is our life, our essence, our bloodline. When you touched mine, the bond awakened, a link older than our clan itself." She placed her hand on the stone pillar, and for a moment, the carvings glowed brighter. Daniel stepped closer, curiosity mixing with fear. "What does it mean, exactly? What happens now?" Her golden eyes turned to him, and there was no softness in them. "It means you are mine, and I am yours, whether either of us wishes it or not. Your life and mine are tied together. If one falls, so does the other." Daniel's breath caught. The weight of her words sank into his chest like cold water. This wasn't just tradition. It was something real, something binding. He wanted to deny it, to laugh and walk away, but the way the stone glowed under her hand told him the truth. Solara stepped closer, her tail curling slightly as if restless. You must understand, the bond cannot be broken. You carry my honor now, and I carry your weakness. Her words stung. My weakness? Daniel asked, his voice sharper than he meant. Solara's lips curved in a faint, bitter smile. You are human, fragile, untrained, and yet now every enemy who wishes to strike me must strike you too. You are both my greatest shame and my greatest risk. Daniel clenched his fists. He hated being seen as weak, but he also knew he was out of his depth. This was not his world, and its rules were not made for him. As they spoke, an elder appeared from the shadows, cloaked in dark fabric. His face was lined with age, his eyes glowing faintly with wisdom or suspicion. Solara, the elder said slowly, you dare bring a human before the heart. Solara bowed her head slightly, but her voice did not waver. He must know, he carries the bond. The elder's gaze shifted to Daniel, and his lips curled. So this is the fool who touched what no other may touch. Daniel opened his mouth to defend himself, but Solara raised a hand, silencing him. He is bound, elder. Mock him if you wish, but the bond is real. The elder circled him like a predator, his voice dripping with contempt. Do you know what this means, human? You are no longer free, your blood, your breath, even your death is tied to hers. You are part of the Kari whether you accept it or not. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to shout, to escape, but the elder's words cut deeper than any blade. Solara's hand brushed against her tail, and her eyes stayed locked on Daniel. You cannot run, you cannot hide. The bond will follow you wherever you go. That night, Daniel was given a new chamber inside the fortress, larger but still guarded. Through the window, he could see the alien city glowing under the stars. He felt smaller than ever, caught between a life he once knew and a destiny he never asked for. Solara came once more before he slept, standing in the doorway. Her golden eyes no longer burned with anger, but with something else, conflict. You think you are trapped, human, she said quietly. But so am I, you carry my clan's shame. And yet, you are also the only one who shares my fate. Daniel looked at her, unsure what to say. The silence stretched between them, heavy, unbreakable. Finally, she turned away, her tail flicking in the dim light. Rest, she said. Tomorrow the trials begin, and then we will see if you truly deserve to carry my bond. Daniel lay awake long after she left. His chest heavy, his mind racing. What trials? What more could they want from him? And yet, beneath all the fear, a single thought echoed in his heart. The bond was real, and it had only just begun to change his life. The next morning came with the sound of drums, deep and heavy, echoing through the fortress walls. Daniel woke with his heart already racing. He had not slept much, haunted by Solara's words, the trials begin. He didn't know what that meant, but every part of him feared it. 2 guards entered his chamber, their faces cold and unreadable. Come, one of them ordered. Daniel wanted to resist, but there was no point. He followed, his steps heavy, his mind screaming that this was not his fight, not his world. Yet here he was, trapped in it. They led him into the central arena of the fortress. It was a massive circle of stone, open to the sky, with rows of warriors and citizens sitting high above like spectators. The drums grew louder as he entered, and all eyes turned to him. The human, the outsider, the mistake. Daniel's throat tightened. He had never felt so small in his life. Solara was already there, standing tall at the center, her golden eyes sharp and steady. When Daniel met her gaze, she gave the faintest nod, as if telling him to stay strong. But he couldn't understand. Why was she even doing this? Why defend him, protect him, only to throw him into whatever this was? An elder stepped forward, his voice booming. Daniel of Earth, you touched the tail of Solara of the Kari. The sacred bond cannot be undone. But it must be tested. If you survive, you may remain. If you fail. The elder paused, his eyes cold. You die. The crowd roared, some with cheers, some with laughter. Daniel's knees nearly gave out. He turned to Solara in panic, whispering harshly, I can't do this. I don't even know your ways. Her face remained calm, but her words were sharp. Then learn fast, human, because no one here will spare you. The first trial began. A warrior twice Daniel's size stepped into the arena, carrying a staff of dark steel. He bowed to Solara, then raised his weapon toward Daniel. The crowd cheered, their voices filling the air like thunder. Daniel swallowed hard, his heart slamming in his chest. He had no weapon, no training, nothing. But he had one thing the others didn't expect: the will to survive. The warrior lunged, the staff swinging toward Daniel's head. Daniel ducked just in time, stumbling on the stone floor. The crowd laughed, shouting insults. But Daniel gritted his teeth and kept moving. He couldn't match strength, so he had to use speed. The fight dragged on, every strike forcing Daniel to dodge, roll, and scramble. His body screamed in pain, his lungs burned, but he refused to give up. At last, the warrior made one mistake. He overextended his swing. Daniel grabbed a loose stone from the ground and smashed it against the warrior's knee. The giant stumbled, roaring in pain. Without thinking, Daniel slammed the stone again, forcing the warrior to collapse. The arena went silent, then erupted in shouts of shock. Daniel stood there, panting, covered in sweat, holding nothing but a broken rock. The elder's eyes narrowed. The human wins the first trial, he announced coldly. Daniel dropped the stone, his arms shaking. He had survived, but he knew it wasn't over. The second trial came quickly. This time, they released a beast into the arena. A massive creature with horns and claws, its eyes glowing red. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. It was a predator from their world, and now it wanted his blood. The beast charged, its roar shaking the air. Daniel ran, his legs burning, his mind screaming for escape. He grabbed a spear thrown into the arena for him, barely holding it steady. When the beast lunged again, he thrust the spear forward. It pierced the creature's shoulder, making it howl. But the spear snapped under the force. Daniel scrambled backward, searching desperately. The crowd chanted for the beast, not for him. Solara's eyes locked on his, and for a split second, he saw something: fear, not for herself, but for him. That gave him strength. When the beast leapt again, Daniel rolled under it, grabbed a broken piece of its horn from the ground, and drove it into its neck. The creature thrashed, then fell, the arena shaking as it collapsed. The silence afterward was deafening. Daniel stood trembling, blood on his hands, breathless but alive. The elder raised his voice once more. The human survives again. The third trial was not of strength, but of courage. They placed Daniel before a circle of flames. Inside the circle sat a bowl of glowing liquid. The fire of truth, the elder said. If your spirit is weak, the flames will consume you. If you are worthy, you will pass unharmed. Daniel's throat went dry. This wasn't about skill. This was something else, something mystical. He stepped into the flames, expecting to feel burning pain. But instead, the fire licked around him like smoke, hot but not deadly. He forced himself forward, his steps heavy, his body trembling. At last, he reached the bowl and lifted it high. The crowd gasped, the fire vanished, and Daniel stood tall, holding the proof of his courage. The trials ended. Daniel collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving, his body broken but alive. The elder's voice carried across the arena. The bond holds. The human has proven his place among us. The crowd was divided. Some shouted in anger, others in reluctant respect. Solara stepped forward, placing her hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You did not fail," she said softly, almost proud. Daniel looked up at her, his body aching, his mind spinning. He had survived the challenge, but at what cost? As the crowd continued to roar, one chilling truth echoed in Daniel's heart. This was only the beginning. The real danger was still ahead. The fortress was still buzzing with the echoes of the trials. Some warriors grumbled in anger, others spoke in low voices of respect. But Daniel felt none of it. He lay in his chamber, his body aching from the battles, every breath sharp like knives in his chest. He had survived, yes, but survival did not feel like victory. It felt like standing on the edge of a storm, waiting for the sky to break. Solara entered without knocking, her tail swaying behind her. She carried a bowl of water and a strip of cloth. "Drink," she said simply, holding the bowl to him. Daniel hesitated, but thirst won, and he drank greedily. The cool water slid down his throat like relief itself. "You fought well," she said at last, her golden eyes watching him closely. Daniel gave a tired laugh. "I almost died." "That," Solara replied calmly, "is what it means to fight." Before Daniel could answer, a horn sounded in the distance, loud, sharp, and filled with urgency. Solara's head snapped up, her tail stiffening. "That is no practice call," she whispered. The horn sounded again, followed by the pounding of drums. Shouts echoed through the corridors outside. War had come to the Kari fortress. Solara grabbed her blade, a long curved weapon that gleamed in the torchlight. "Stay here," she ordered. But Daniel pushed himself up, his body trembling. "What's happening?" Her voice grew hard. "Enemies, a rival clan, they come to break us." The walls shook as the first explosion struck the outer gate. Dust rained from the ceiling, and Daniel's heart thundered in his chest. The screams of warriors filled the air, the sound of metal clashing with metal. Solara turned to leave, but Daniel grabbed her arm. "I can't just sit here," he said, his voice raw. She stared at him, surprise flickering across her face. "You can barely stand." "Then I'll full fighting," he shot back. For a moment, Solara's golden eyes softened. Then she gave a sharp nod. "Stay close to me," she said, handing him a short blade from her belt. Daniel gripped the weapon tightly, its weight heavy but real in his hand. They rushed into the chaos. The courtyard was ablaze, warriors locked in brutal combat with armored intruders. The rival clan had come in force, their banners black, their faces painted with war marks. Daniel froze at the sight of the blood, the fire, the madness of battle. But Solara's voice cut through the storm. "Move, human." A warrior lunged at Daniel, swinging a jagged axe. Instinct took over. Daniel ducked, the blade missing his head by inches. He shoved his short blade upward, striking the warrior in the side. The alien roared and collapsed. Daniel stumbled back, his heart racing. He had killed, truly killed. There was no time to think. More enemies poured in, their weapons gleaming under the firelight. Solara moved like lightning, her curved blade slicing through two warriors at once. Her tail whipped behind her, knocking another to the ground. She fought like the legends carved on the walls, beautiful, deadly, unstoppable. Daniel stayed close, fighting clumsily but with raw determination. He blocked strikes, shoved enemies back, and more than once, Solara's blade saved his life. But he did not run. He stood, bled, and fought beside her. The elder's voice rose above the chaos, shouting orders. "Hold the gates. Drive them back." But the enemy was strong. The gates cracked, the fortress walls shook, and the Kari warriors began to falter. Daniel looked around, his lungs burning, his body screaming for rest. Then he saw Solara fall to one knee, a spear grazing her side. "Solara!" he shouted, running to her. An enemy warrior raised his weapon high to strike her down. Without thinking, Daniel threw himself forward, slamming into the warrior with all his strength. The blade missed Solara, biting instead into Daniel's arm. Pain exploded, but he ignored it, driving his own short blade into the enemy's chest. The crowd of warriors saw it, the human bleeding, but saving the Kari heiress with his own body. A roar rose, louder than the horns, louder than the drums. For the first time, the warriors shouted not in mockery, but in unity. They shouted with him. They shouted for him. Daniel pulled Solara back to her feet, his blood staining the stones. "We're not done yet," he growled. Solara's golden eyes locked on his, shining with something fierce. "No, we are not," she agreed, her voice breaking into a war cry. She raised her blade high, and Daniel, though exhausted, lifted his too. The sound of their cry rose into the night, and the Kari clan answered with a roar that shook the battlefield. The enemy faltered, the tide of battle shifting. The Kari fought harder, stronger, their spirits lit by the sight of a human who refused to die. Step by step, they drove the invaders back, until at last the gates closed again. The courtyard was filled with fire, blood, and silence. The enemy was gone. The fortress still stood. Daniel collapsed against a wall, his arm bleeding, his breath shallow. Solara knelt beside him, pressing her hand to his wound. "You're a fool," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel gave a weak laugh. "Maybe, but I'm your fool." For the first time since the accident, Solara smiled. Not mockery, not pride, something real, something warm. "You carry more than my bond now, Daniel of Earth," she said softly. "You carry my respect." The war cry had changed everything. The fortress smelled of smoke and blood. The fires were out, but the scars of battle remained. Broken weapons littered the ground, wounded warriors groaned in pain, and the cries of families echoed in the night. Daniel sat against the wall, his arm wrapped in cloth, his body shaking from exhaustion. He had survived, but he felt hollow inside. Solara stood near him, speaking with the elders, her tail flicking sharply as she argued. Daniel couldn't hear their words, but he saw their faces, stern, angry, proud. They looked at him often, and each time their gazes burned with judgment. He knew what they were debating. Him. Finally, Solara approached, her golden eyes unreadable. "You should rest," she said, her voice softer than usual. Daniel gave a tired smile. "Rest? In this place? They all want me gone, or dead." She knelt beside him, her tail curling around her feet. "You are alive because you fought beside us," she said firmly. "Without you, I would have fallen. Many of my people would have fallen. They cannot ignore that." Daniel shook his head, his throat tight. "I don't belong here, Solara. I never did." Her eyes flashed with something sharp, hurt, maybe even anger. "You touched my tail," she whispered. "Our lives are tied, whether you wish it or not." Before Daniel could reply, the elder stepped forward, his voice echoing across the courtyard. "The human has proven his courage," he announced. "But this does not erase the truth. He is an outsider, he carries our shame, and the bond is a burden to us all." The crowd murmured in agreement, their voices cold and heavy. Daniel felt the weight pressing down on him. Then the elder's gaze locked on Daniel. "You have a choice, human," he said. "Remain here as part of our clan, never to return to your people, or leave now and be banished forever. But know this, if you leave, the bond remains. Solara will carry your absence as her curse, and you will carry hers until death." The silence that followed was crushing. Daniel's heart pounded. Stay in a world that hated him? Or leave, knowing Solara would suffer because of him? It was no choice at all. It was a trap. Solara stepped closer, her golden eyes meeting his. "Daniel," she said softly, so only he could hear, "do not decide quickly, your choice will shape both our lives." For the first time, Daniel saw something in her eyes that tore through his fear. It was not anger, nor duty. It was hope, fragile and trembling. That night, Daniel lay awake in his chamber, staring at the ceiling. He thought of Earth, the life he had left behind, the quiet work, the simple days. He thought of Solara, her strength, her fire, her voice when she whispered, "You are mine now." He thought of the bond, invisible but real, tying his heart to hers like a chain of fate. And he realized something that shook him to his core. He did not hate it. He feared it, yes, but deep inside, a part of him was drawn to it. At dawn, the drums sounded again, calling the clan to gather. Daniel walked into the courtyard, his steps heavy but steady. The people stood in silence, waiting for his choice. Solara stood at the front, her face calm, but her tail twitched nervously behind her. The elder raised his voice. "Daniel of Earth, speak your choice. Will you stay among us, or will you leave and curse her forever?" Daniel's throat felt dry. He looked at the faces around him. Warriors glaring, mothers whispering, children staring with wide eyes. He looked at Solara, her golden gaze steady but filled with silent questions. And then he spoke. "I don't know your ways," he said, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "I don't know your laws, or your battles, or your traditions. But I know this, I will not leave her, not now, not ever." A gasp swept through the crowd. Some shouted in anger, others fell silent in disbelief. Solara's eyes widened, her lips parting in shock. Daniel took a step forward, his voice firm. "You say I don't belong here, maybe you're right, but I fought for you, I bled for you, and I stood when many would have run. If that is not enough, then so be it, but I will not abandon her." The elder's face darkened, his jaw tight. "You bind yourself to her fate, human, do you truly accept it?" Daniel nodded, his voice steady. "Yes." For a long moment, there was silence. Then Solara stepped forward, placing her hand on his shoulder. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but her words were clear. "He has chosen, and so have I, he is mine, and I will stand with him, no matter what comes." The courtyard erupted in chaos, some shouting approval, others cursing. But Daniel did not hear them. He only felt the warmth of Solara's hand, the weight of her choice, and the bond that tied them together, stronger now than ever before. The choice had been made, and there was no turning back. The storm inside the fortress did not end with Daniel's choice. The crowd argued, warriors shouted, and elders debated. Some called him brave, others called him a curse. But Daniel no longer cared. For the first time since the accident in the marketplace, his heart was steady. He had chosen. He would not abandon Solara, even if it meant living in a world that would never truly accept him. That night, the fires burned low in the fortress courtyard. The wounded were tended, the dead honored. And Daniel sat alone, staring at the alien stars above. He wondered if Earth's stars still looked the same, or if fate had already erased his place there. Solara approached quietly, her footsteps soft on the stone. Her tail curled around as she sat beside him. For a while, they said nothing, just listened to the crackle of flames. At last, she broke the silence. "You surprised me today," she whispered, her golden eyes reflecting the firelight. Daniel gave a faint smile. "I surprised myself." She studied him for a long moment, her face unreadable. "Do you truly understand what you have done?" she asked. "You cannot leave now, you cannot walk away. The bond will follow you until death. Your life is mine, and mine is yours." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know," he said softly, "and I don't regret it." Solara's lips parted, as if she wanted to argue. But instead, she looked away, her voice quieter than he had ever heard. Then you are braver than most of my people. The following day, the clan gathered in the great hall. The walls glowed with symbols carved from crystal, the air heavy with incense. This was no battlefield. It was a place of vows. The elder stood at the front, his voice booming. The human has chosen to remain. The heiress has chosen to keep him. The bond must now be sealed by the right. The crowd fell silent. Daniel's chest tightened. What's the right? He whispered to Solara. Her tail flicked nervously. It is the final step, she said, her golden eyes locking on his. Once it is done, our bond will be eternal. No power can break it, not even death. Daniel's breath caught. He felt fear coil inside him, but also something else, a strange warmth he could not explain. The elder raised his hand, and the crystal lights dimmed. Step forward, he commanded. Daniel and Solara moved to the center of the hall. The crowd leaned forward, watching with wide eyes. A bowl of silver liquid was placed before them, glowing faintly as if alive. Dip your hands, the elder instructed. Daniel hesitated, then placed his hand into the liquid. It was warm, almost burning, but he did not pull away. Solara placed her hand over his, their skin meeting in the strange glow. The elder's voice rang out. 2 lives, 1 bond, 2 hearts, 1 fate, sealed by honor, sealed by blood. The liquid rose around their hands, glowing brighter. Daniel felt a surge rush through him, as if fire and lightning had entered his veins. His breath caught, his vision blurred. But through it all, Solara's golden eyes held his steady. He realized then, it was not just law, not just tradition. It was real. When the light faded, the bowl was empty. The bond was complete. Daniel pulled his hand free, gasping. But on his wrist, faint lines of golden light now shimmered. The same glow that burned faintly in Solara's skin. The crowd murmured in awe. The bond mark was visible for all to see. The elder spoke again, his voice heavy. It is done. He is no longer outsider, no longer stranger. He is bound to the heiress of the Kari, for life and beyond. Daniel stood in silence, his heart pounding. He felt the weight of it. The chains, yes, but also something else. Not prison, not curse, but connection. He was no longer alone. After the ceremony, the crowd broke into chaos again. Some shouted that it was wrong. Others bowed their heads in respect. But Solara ignored them all. She stood beside him, her tail brushing lightly against his leg. You are part of my world now, she whispered. Whether the clan accepts it or not, I accept it, and that is enough. Daniel looked at her, at the fire in her golden eyes, at the pride and the fragile hope she carried. For the first time, he smiled without fear. I may have touched your tail by mistake, he said softly, but staying with you, that's no mistake. Solara's lips curved into the smallest smile, and for the first time since the accident, her shoulders relaxed. The bond was no longer unwanted, no longer cursed. It was theirs. Outside the fortress, the stars blazed brighter than ever. The world was still dangerous, the future uncertain. But Daniel knew one thing with certainty. The accident that had changed his life had given him something he never expected. A bond eternal.